Om Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munisha Sane Karma Uta Varda Nishri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munisha Sane Karma Uta Varda Nishri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munisha Sane Karma Uta Varda Nishri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munisha Sane Karma Uta Varda Nishri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munisha Sane Karma Uta Varda Nishri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munisha Sane Karma Uta Varda Nishri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munisha Sane Karma Uta Varda Nishri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munisha Sane Karma Uta Varda Nishri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munisha Sane Karma Uta Varda Nishri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munisha Sane Karma Uta Varda Nishri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munisha Sane Karma Uta Varda Nishri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munisha Sane Karma Uta Varda Nishri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munisha Sane Karma Uta Varda Nishri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munisha Sane Karma Uta Varda Nishri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Om Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munisha Sane Karma Uta Varda Nishri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Om Dalo Dame Chur Peda De Duje De Jingen Ramada Yime Rinjen Sawe Lama Nikudo Karma Zembe Lazo De Che Chujin Dorje Pega Dan Yime Tribu Danje Nidenda Mage Chugo Sunso Sirdo Penche Te Dorje Kidrubu Guru Na Shuduga Labe Lama Marke Do Che Chuji Yumbe Oda Bakunjo Sumso Chage Tukar Sen Dardarin Che Gengi Seba Lo Yegen Yungu Guru Shupe Tukar Dami Jengu Seba Semba Sungi Dani Ngaroma Onda Sawa Senando Yesherani Resese Tugi Yogi Kemne Malo Bachendra Dimbe Gundo Dani Chizono Bojancho Bardo Shuko Sangube Yigechat Jojoba Maloboto Meneza Dicton Tamje Shaki Bargewa Queen La Chera Subject Choco Cordo Soda Shengewa Janjo Chimborno to Gardine Sembata Cordo Yige Chube Nage Korwar Tare tu tare tu re som 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 tare Tare tu tare tu re som 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 tare Dare 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 som 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 dare 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 Amotare tuttare ture soha dushun rabo soha tabe to lame ko son tokin Yusiwe se karma tenka son rimda jija chungne danyi gene son rinda jija timbale tripsi daji nanda washinto kushin topshin lama nip kishin timbe jinge la para kyo pandan sawe lama Rinpoche taki nyingar pede de shun la karin chenpo gone je son te kuson toke ngodro tsado Hakyu ke kudanda ki lo pakyu ke sondanda ki nga pakyu ke todanda ki Yerme chiktu jingelo pakyo ke kudan dagilu pakyo ke sundan dagila pakyo ke tudam dagi ten yerme chiktu jingelo makyo ke kudam dagilu makyo ke sundan dagila makyo ke tudam dagi ten yerme chiktu jingelo Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Soha Om Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Soha Om Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Soha Sangye Chodan Sogi Chonamla Chanchu Pardo Dani Kyapsochi Dagi Chushe Give Sonamgi Drola Pinchre Sangye Druparshu Sangye Chodan Sogi Chonamla Chanchu Pardo Dani Kyapsochi Dagi Chushe Give Sonamgi Drola Pinchre Sangye Druparshu Sangye Chodan Sogi Chonamla Chanchu Pardo Dani Kyapsuchi Dagi Chushe Give Sonamgi Drola Pinchira Sanye Drupareshu. In the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Good morning. I'm actually very happy to be here today. for many different reasons. First of all, because from all the things I do, the one that I most like is actually being here. Teaching the Dharma, practicing together, learning, that's really what I mostly enjoy. And I wanted to start today actually with one verse from Lama Tsongkhapa. A verse that Lama Tsongkhapa said in the very beginning of one of the most important books that he wrote, which is called Rimnga Saljon, which is the lamp that clears the 5 stages on the path. The 5 stages on the path in this case is the 5 stages of Guhya Samaja, on the Tantra of Guhya Samaja, on the completion stage of Guhya Samaja. And the text starts saying, Dirjupani kelpa sangurshe, lekpar somla gawe shingidang, rapsel zumbe nyamdan dembai, namyang nögi kyon sum pong la nyon. Which a translation would be something like that. Recognize, remember, be aware of how precious, how fortunate you are of entering here. Entering here means entering into the Dharma, receiving these teachings. So be aware of how fortunate you are of entering here. Reflecting clearly about it, you should shine with joy. So shine with joy by reflecting upon it, of the preciousness that we have. With a beautiful, clear smile, a smile that radiates light. Rapsel. Rap means very, sel means clear, but like light, no? With an illuminating smile. Listen carefully, without distractions, abandoning the 3 faulty containers. Okay. So, what Lama Tsongkhapa is saying here to us, first of all, we need to remember the preciousness of what we have here. Because it is really very precious, and how fortunate we are. And what do we have here? It's not only a matter of our lineage and the matter of the specific teachings and so on. First of all, it's extremely precious the fact that we can follow a spiritual path, which is not obvious at all. Follow it sincerely. If we look well, most of the people, only also in our own life, we don't need to take necessarily ourselves out of this. Most of the time that is dedicated in our lives and the life of people around us and so on is dedicated to mundane things. Most of the life is dedicated to basically survival, which is doing everything that we can in order to take care of the material things. So we need to work, we need to take care of the things that we have. We dedicate a lot of time in order to avoid sufferings of the body here and there. We dedicate a lot of time to the relationships we have. We want always to be friendly with everyone. We don't want to have difficulties. We want to have a good relation with this person, not with that person, whatever, And then we use a lot of time solving problems, creating problems, And we take a lot of the time of our life is around that, Most of the time. And because this person said this and that person said that, and I want this, but I don't want that, and this shouldn't be like this, and that should be like that, and here and there. And we take a lot of our time, the space of our life dedicated for these things. Basically, avoiding suffering, trying to get pleasure, the recognition of ourselves, what other people think about us, how they see us. We dedicate a lot of time for the material things, taking care of the material things, accumulating material things, and so on. Taking care of our body, some little problem here, some little problem there, and like this we go on and on and on. And as we go on, it gets just worse. Okay? I mean the fact of taking care of our body, basically. Okay? There is no much choice on that. Rinpoche used to say, our body is our worst friend. The more you take care of it, the more it goes against you, in time. But the point is, we dedicate a lot of time for this. But if it really worked, wonderful, no? if by taking care of all these material aspects and the recognition of our image and all of this, if it really brought us joy, satisfaction, peace, perfect. But instead, not like that. And to go directly to the point, there is one example that I like giving, I gave already many times, which is, let's imagine that suddenly we have here a genius of the lamp. No? Little different than the genie of the lamp, little different than the one that normally we have in the stories that we used to listen when we were a kid. Let's imagine the genie of the lamp, little Tibetan style, maybe coming out of a Boomba, and then but the difference basically is that the genie is giving us two choices. First choice, we can choose anything we want materially. Okay, you don't like your body, let's change body. I want to be tall, short, fat, thin. I want to be a man, I want to be a woman, I don't know what I want to be. Okay, choose what you want to be physically. You don't like your hair, I don't like my nose, I don't like my ear, I want to be like this. Anything physically you can change. Just choose it. Not too many times, just choose once at least. Then after that, materially, what do you want? Oh, I want a beautiful house. I want many houses with people keeping it always clean and nicely. And I want to have many cars and airplanes and helicopters and a boat. And then I want to have as much money as I cannot even count, and I cannot even know how much money I have. I don't even need to worry about the existence of money because I simply have so much, Just whatever you want, just think about it and you get it. What type of people you want around you, how many people you want, and so on. But there is one point, and very often when you have this sort of genius that you can realize your wishes and desires, there is always something not really nice, some trick around, And in this first case, the trick is, yes, you can get everything you want materially, but inside you continue just the same. With your fears, your sadness, your traumas, and ignorance, or whatever. Okay, whatever we are. The second choice is the genie comes and said, look, materially, you will continue to be just as you are. The body is what you have. The house where you live is what it is. The financial situation is what it is. The people you have around yourself is what it is. That nothing will change. But what I can give to you, I can give you satisfaction. I can give you joy, love, concentration, awareness. I can take away your anger, your jealousy, your pride, your miserliness, your selfishness. So, which one would you choose? The first one or the second one? No. Very often I see people saying, really, when they talk sincerely, very often people say, oh, why can't I get both? Actually, when we want both, it means we do not trust the second. Really, we want the first. But if we stop to analyze it a little bit better, we will see that really the one that it's really meaningful is getting the second. Because why do we want all the material things and so on? Because we want to feel satisfied. So why don't we simply get satisfaction? It's actually much more simple. So the point is that if we analyze, we will see that the second one is much better. But if we analyze deeper and we ask ourselves, where am I putting my energy daily in my life? To get the first or to get the second? This we should give the answer for ourselves. Okay. So if we look around us, most of the time, most of the people are dedicating their life, their time, their energy to get basically material things, recognition, and so on. But what really works, what really brings the state of joy or satisfaction, because deep within what we really want is to be happy. And what can bring us happiness is developing our inner qualities and eliminating our defilements. It's not generating a perfect material situation, condition that is impossible to get, basically. Okay. So, based on that, what happened is that why it's so precious to follow a spiritual path. because it's through the spiritual path that we can develop our inner qualities that will bring us a state of more joy and satisfaction and peace. That is what we mostly want. So, that's why it's so important. That's why it's so precious. But at the same time, it's quite rare. It's not something that we do all the day. It's not something that we do all the time. Some of us may do, but most of us do not. So it's really important for us to recognize the preciousness of this, and at the same time to recognize that we are here, for this next 3 days to do the practice of Tara Chittamani, which is one of my favorite practices, really very meaningful and very important for me. But first of all, recognize the preciousness of the spiritual path itself. We are not here during these days when we do our practice in order to gain material things. We are not here in order to gain physical pleasure. We are not here in order to get our recognition of our image, like, okay, now I feel I am Buddhist, so I have this, what do you call, the Buddhist sort of, not sort of explicitly certificate when you have the test like a membership, some people feel, oh, now I am Buddhist, I'm not talking about the center membership card, which we almost have, but I'm talking about I am Buddhist, like, oh, I have a membership card, I feel Buddhist, so I'm going to put one stamp, Chittamani Tara, stamp on it. So I can go around and I can show off myself saying that, oh, I know the practice of Tara Chittamani. Okay, we're not here for that, right? So we're not here for our image. We're not here to have the recognition saying, oh, how good you are, how special you are, or anything like that. So basically, we're not here for mundane reasons. We're not here to gain material things. We're not here to gain pleasure. We're not here to gain recognition of our image. And this by itself makes already very rare what we are doing. Because most of the things that we do is for material purposes, for pleasure, for avoiding suffering, physical suffering, and so on, for pleasure, and for the recognition of our image, which is the most difficult of all. But that's what most of the time we are dedicating to. So the fact that we are here without that motivation already makes by itself what we are doing, the practices, the teachings, and so on, makes it part of the spiritual path. So how fortunate we are to enter here. So reflecting clearly upon it, we should really enlighten ourselves with joy. Feel this incredible joy. And it's so important for us to rejoice about it, because after some time we start taking it for granted. Okay, I go, I receive the teachings, I go there, I see the Lama, I do my practice, this and that. But after some time we take it for granted, and then we can maybe lose the taste of it. We can lose the joy that we have. We can lose, not necessarily it happens, but it's possible for us to lose somehow the magic that is within. Okay. Which is this great pleasure, this joy, this enthusiasm, which is so beautiful, so important, the taste that we have within our practice. So we need to rejoice about it. First of all, of being part of a spiritual path, of sincerely following a spiritual path. That's already a lot. And that's already very good. And we need to really deeply rejoice about it. Okay? So, once we have clear that we are on a spiritual path, because we transcend the mundane aspects of doing something for material reasons, doing it for physical pleasures of the senses, or doing it for the recognition of our own image or power or something like that. Once we transcend it, the teachings that we receive here, the practice that we will do at these days of Tara Chittamani, are actually part of the teachings of Buddha, first of all. So, who was Buddha? What does it mean to follow the teachings of Buddha, to follow Buddhism? Buddha was a person. He lived, let's say, around 2,500 years ago. Some people say 2,500 years. Other sources say 2,800 years. Sincerely, doesn't make much difference. astrologically, they say 2,800 years, many astrologers. And many archaeologists also say 2,800 years. And then we have many other practitioners and many other parts say 2,550 years. Really, for me, sincerely, doesn't matter really how long it was. The important thing is that Buddha Shakyamuni was a person, a man, that had many sufferings just like us. In the life as Buddha or in the lives before also, he had many problems, many sufferings and so on. But through a long process, he was able to get out of this cycle of suffering. He was able to generate peace, joy. He was able to generate satisfaction, to eliminate his own anger, aversion, desire, attachment, selfishness. He was able to eliminate completely every mental defilement and to develop his qualities to the maximum of his potential. And this is how he became a Buddha. That's what it means by a Buddha. And what Buddha Shakyamuni did was that after he reached such state that we call enlightenment, he shared it with others. He said, okay, those that want to follow the same path that I did, this is how to do. Why he shared it with us? Because he believed very much in our own possibility to do it. Because he said, look, you are in the same state which I was before. And I could do it, so why can't you? He had the same conditions, Buddha Shakyamuni, before becoming a Buddha at some point in one of his lives. He had miserliness, he was very envy and jealous, and he was suffering for stupid things, and so on. What we do. And he could do it. He could get out of the cycle of suffering. He could overcome, he could transcend all these defilements and ignorance and selfishness and so on. So what basically Buddha said is, if I could do it, why can't you? You can also do it. You have the same conditions, you have the same resources that I had. So you can also do it. And here is the path for you to follow. So Buddha gave to us specific path to follow. But the path that we need to follow is not an external path. It's not a path that is, let's say, like, okay, you need to recite such an amount of mantras, you need to make this meditation or to study the philosophy. All these things are very important. But it's, first of all, we need to understand that when we talk about the path that we need to follow, it's an inner path. Is to develop stages of consciousness, is to develop love and compassion and wisdom, to eliminate the anger or jealousy or pride or miserliness and so on. This is the actual path that we need to follow. When we talk about the path to enlightenment, it's not the external aspect of reciting mantras or following meditation or studying the philosophy or reflecting upon it. All these things are very important, but they are the methods that can sustain our path. That can somehow, make the change inside us. But the actual path is the change happening within. I can recite thousands of mantras and millions of mantras. I can know the Buddhist philosophy by heart. But if I am not using this to change my mind, to develop my qualities, really, I am not following the path. The path is my own inner process of transformation, of growth, of becoming each time more ripe and more mature. This is eliminating our defilements. That's the actual path that we need to follow. That in order to follow this path, Buddha gave us many methods out of his compassion and wisdom. He said, okay, this is the path that you need to follow, which normally is divided into 5 steps, which are called the 5 paths, which we call the path of accumulation, the path of preparation, the path of seeing, the path of meditation, and the path of no more learning. We're not going to enter into details about this right now because otherwise it's a bit too long to go, and too specific right now to go into details about the 5 paths. But basically, it's the process of development of love, compassion, of wisdom, of elimination of selfishness, of elimination of ignorance, and so on. And this is basically the path
that we have to follow. Okay? Eliminating the mental defilements and the imprints of our mental defilements. This is the path that we follow to enlightenment. Developing our qualities to their maximum potential. This is part of the path that we need to follow. So, in order to follow this path, we have methods such as the philosophy, meditation, recitation. All of this is helping us. So this is what Buddha taught us. And the practice that we will do when we talk like a sadhana, we have the practice of Tara Chittamani. We'll go into more details about it, but basically what it is, it's made out of three main aspects. Every part of the practice have three main aspects, which we will see in details, which are recitation, visualization, and state of consciousness, which means what we need to say, what we need to imagine, and what we need to think, basically. The recitation and the visualization, they are there mostly to give support to what we need to think, to the state of consciousness that we need to generate. And by generating such state of consciousness, we create familiarization with it, so that afterwards it can come in a spontaneous and natural way. Okay, I'm simplifying it a lot, but this is what is actually the main function of a sadhana. Okay? When we have a sadhana, the main function of it is that sadhana means recitation and meditation. So we have the recitation with visualization, and then the meditation, the thoughts that we should have, the state of consciousness that we should generate. And with this, it's a very strong support for the development of our inner qualities. So the actual path, this is the point that I want to get right now, is that the actual path is not the recitation, it's not even the meditation from the point of view of visualization, it's not the knowledge about the philosophy or reflecting upon it. All this is part of the path in the sense that it's the support for the path. But the actual path is the development of our inner qualities, the elimination of our inner defilements. That's the actual realizations. Okay? And all that we have, it's there to support it. It's there in the service of our own inner development. Okay? And this, for me, is extremely important for us to understand. Otherwise, we can say millions of mantras, know the whole philosophy by heart, but if it's not changing our mind, we are not following the path. Okay? So it's very important to understand that all of this, it's very precious, it's very important, but it exists in the service of the path. And the path is the inner path of transformation. It's nothing external to us. Okay? Within the teachings of Buddha, Buddha taught in many different ways. There is one verse from the text which is called Manjushri Nama Sangita, Jampet Senju, which is reciting the names of Manjushri, which was taught by Buddha. It's a sutra, in which he says, there are different paths. I don't remember now the exact line, but it says something like, the different vehicles, the three different vehicles bring to one same result. Which means all the teachings of Buddha taught in many different ways. There is the Vajrahinayana, Mahayana, Vajrayana. There are many different traditions, many different schools of philosophy, and so on and so on. But all the teachings of Buddha brings to one same result, which is enlightenment. So all the teachings, even though the teachings are different, even though the teachings may have different aspects and sometimes may look even contradictory, they all bring to the same path. The path is one. We can have different traditions, we can have different names, different philosophical schools, and so on, but the path is one. The path is the path to enlightenment. It's the inner path of transformation. It's the inner path of growth. It's not something different according to every tradition and so on. The method that we are going to use, the approach that we are going to have is different. Why? Because we are different. We need different approaches, In order for two different people to get to the same place, they need to be explained in two different ways. We are not all exactly the same. And Buddha had this wonderful quality, Buddha Shakyamuni and all the Buddhas and many masters that came after him, this incredible quality of actually adapting to the mentality of the ones that are listening, to the disciples. You know, it's very easy to say things according to the way how I like it, how I think things should be, and my own way of thinking, and I just say to others what I think. That's quite simple. What is really difficult is to understand the mentality of others and to see realities as they see it and explain my own way of seeing things according to their way of seeing things. And that's what Buddha did. That's why we have so many traditions. That's why we have so many schools. Even we have the first school, which is divided into 18 schools and so on. Okay. Why? Because we are different. We need different approaches. So some people are in one level, and other people are in another level that they can practice. That's why Buddha taught in many different ways. We don't need to practice in the same way. We all follow the same path independently of what type of practice, what type of teaching we are following or not. Okay? And this is something that it's very much due also when we talk about, it's also important, even in daily life, daily communication, you know. When we talk to someone, really, in order for the communication to function well, we need to have awareness of what we want to say, of ourselves. We need to have awareness of the other person that is listening, what he is, who he is. And we need to have awareness of the message, how to give the message in the best way. Very often we don't have awareness of what we think, what we want to say. We have no awareness of, we don't take really the other one into consideration. And we're not careful in the way how we say things. So communication simply doesn't work. Okay? So it is important for us to have these three aspects. And Buddha had it very clear. Sure, he had 100% clearness about what he wanted to teach, which is the path that he had already realized. At the same time, he had always the awareness of and compassion to see each one of us and respect our own level of development and find the best words, the best methods in order to help us on this path. So Buddha taught in many, many different ways, from which, once we put them together, they are basically put into two groups. And the second group can be divided into two again. Okay? We call the Hinayana and the Mahayana teachings. Okay? Nowadays, the Hinayana is mostly known also as the Theravada. Some people don't like the name Hinayana because it means the lesser, the small vehicle. And some people may think that is somehow something which is, how do you say, inferior or something. It has nothing to do with that. But actually the Hinayana school, originally it was divided into two schools, which is called the Vaibhasika and the Swautantrika. And the Vaibhasika school was divided into 18 different schools, which were 18 different places where Buddha gave the very similar teachings. Not exactly the same, but very similar. And one of these 18 schools, 18 traditions, is called the Theravada. And is the one that has survived through the centuries and is the most well-known up to today. So when we talk about the Theravada, actually it's one of the 18 schools of one of the two schools of the Hinayana. Okay? So, but making it very briefly, very short, in a very simple way, what is the main aspect of the Hinayana teaching in this way? Which at no moment the Mahayana teaching is, how to say, undermining. All the teachings that we find in the Hinayana, they are all part also inside the Mahayana. The Mahayana will add something more, but will not take anything away. Okay, it's not saying, oh, these teachings are for the Hinayana, I don't need that because I am Mahayana. No, it's not like that. So the first aspect of the teachings in the Hinayana, what's the main aspect from my point of view? Is basically to develop love towards ourselves. To learn how to love well ourselves. Which is basically understanding clear what harms us and having a strong determination an effort to avoid it. Understanding clear what is of benefit for us and having a strong determination and effort to accomplish it. Simple as that. But extremely important, you know. The Hinayana teachings, they are very practical, very often, very down to earth, like very objective. And I think it's so important for us. Many of you should remember when the abbot of Dhammakaya, most venerable Lumpo Tata, when he was here last summer, and he gave incredible teachings, so practical, so objective, so clear. And sometimes some people may say, oh, but this is Hinayana, I am Vajrayana, I don't need this, I just see myself as the Buddha. But I have no ability to discern between a positive and a negative action, and very often I cannot even control my own impulses. No. First, we need to know how to, really it's important, we need to know how to love ourselves. Then sure that we have incredible aspects from the Vajrayana path, which we should practice. But the Vajrayana at no point undermines the Mahayana and the Hinayana. Okay? So, we need first to learn how to love ourselves. And this is the first part, which is having clear what is harmful for us and abandon it. And for example, there are 3 different ways of approaching our defilements. According to the, let's say, more generally speaking, the first way, most known within the Hinayana teachings, is that of avoiding the objects of the defilement. So, for example, let's say I have a lot of attachment towards something. And I recognize that my attachment is very harmful. Let's say I have attachment to the tea. And I know that this attachment is very harmful towards me. Okay. So what I do, I avoid having tea. I don't look at the tea. I don't go to places where there is a lot of tea. I simply get away, far away of tea. Why? Because I know that I am fragile. I know that I am weak. And that as soon as I'm going to a tea house, I'm going to have a lot of tea. So what I do, I don't enter tea houses. I don't buy any more tea. I take away all the boilers from my house. I don't have even hot water somehow, you know. Why? Because then I will find an excuse and I will find a way in order to drink tea. Okay? Having a boiler for hot water, does that mean that I will necessarily have tea? No, but I know that I am weak. So, I don't do it. Okay? This is somehow similar. You know, like one of the strongest attachments that pervades the life of people normally is the attachment towards sex and towards the relationships. Something very strong, you know. I was talking some time ago to a friend, a psychologist, and this friend psychologist was saying, I was saying actually, 90% of the problems that people bring is basically relationship things. Oh, because I love that person and he doesn't love me or she doesn't love me, and I have attachment here and I need this and I want this person, I don't have. So much space, so much energy in this life that soon will end, you know. We are there worried about, the way how he loves me, you know, like with the little flower, he loves me or he don't love me, he loves me or he don't love me, you know. It's like really putting so much energy, so much time into this. So what happened is, like when we have a monk, what is one of the points of the monastic path, which is part of the Hinayana teaching, is saying, I recognize that what is really priority in my life is my spiritual development. And I don't want to use my time, to lose my life around relationship and attachment and this and so on. And I see that it's really something that, yes, it can be transformed, it can be used in many different ways, it has positive aspects, but it has a lot of negative aspects if I don't know how to deal with it. And I am too weak, I'm not able to deal with it correctly. So what I do, I don't want it. So I keep distance. So for example, when we go in Thailand, where monks are, with deep respect to them, they really keep very strictly all the Vinaya, the monastic rules, you know. For example, their monks will not even touch a woman. Why? Not because a woman is impure or something like this, From our mentality, when we see this, even if we want to give something to the hand of a monk, he will not take, like a woman is giving something to the hand of a monk, he will not take directly from the hand. You need first to put on the table and then he will take it. And some people I already saw many times saying, oh, this is too much, what do we do wrong? What is wrong about us women that they cannot even touch us? Is there anything impure to us or something like this? No, there is nothing wrong about women. There is nothing impure about women. Why the monks don't touch women? Because they recognize their own weakness of attachment. It's not a matter, the problem here is not the woman, the problem is the man in this case. So they recognize, I have my weakness, and if first I touch the thing, then I touch the hand, then from the hand come the arm, and then this is slowly. What the nature of desire is insatisfaction, so I want more and more and more and more. And I know very well my weakness, so I keep distance, because I don't want to follow this attachment. Okay? This is how it's in the Hinayana way, and it's very valid because it's also a way of recognizing our own limits and saying, okay, I am not able to eliminate my attachment. I'm not able to be in front of the object of the attachment and not feel attachment. So what I do first? I get away of the object. So at least I don't follow the attachment. At least I get away of the object of anger, so I don't follow the anger, and so on. Does this work ultimately? No. We still need to deal with the attachment, we still need to deal with the anger, and so on. So, the second step, we could say, which is the one most taught within the Mahayana, doesn't mean it doesn't exist inside the Hinayana, but the mostly taught in the Mahayana path, is the one that says, okay, you have attachment, but the fault is not of the object of attachment, it's of your own mind. So there are methods in order for me to learn to be in front of the object of attachment and not have attachment. It's more difficult, more effective, but more difficult. In order for me to be in front of the object of anger and not having anger. Because the process in this moment is to deal with the observer and not with the object. And it's okay, anger doesn't depend on the object of anger, it depends on how I relate myself to it. And anger is not good for myself, so I need to go beyond it. I need to eliminate my own anger. When I have a lot of attachment, it's not good for myself, so I need to eliminate my attachment, not eliminate the object. Okay? There is a danger if I only try to get away of the object, and if I don't do it in the right way, one day suddenly I find myself in front of the object, then I jump on it, So, we need also very much to deal with our negative emotions. And this is the way how mostly in the Mahayana is showing us. Knowing our negative emotions, and there are many methods to help us how to deal with them. The third way of dealing with it, which is in the Vajrayana, and remember that the Vajrayana is not undermining, the Mahayana is not undermining the Hinayana, and the Vajrayana is not undermining the Mahayana and the Hinayana. It's part of the Mahayana also. It's the fact that say, okay, we have a lot of attachment, we have a lot of anger, maybe we have a lot of aversion, mostly. We have these two strong energies of attraction and of aversion. So let's say that I am a person full of desire. So when I go into the Vajrayana path, what is saying to me? You have desire. Wonderful. Let's cultivate even more desire. Let's make the desire even stronger. But what is your desire? Is this strong wish to get what makes me happy. So what would they say to us in the Vajrayana path? You want to be happy? Okay. But all these pleasures that you are so attached to, they're nothing. These are just a play of a child, You want really to be happy, you need to have the union of great bliss and emptiness. You need really to develop great love and compassion, enlightenment, the pleasure of enlightenment. You have no idea what's the pleasure of enlightenment. It's millions of times much better than any pleasure you are used to and you want to get right now. So we take all the energy of the desire and we direct it to enlightenment. We take the energy of anger, of aversion. Because what is aversion? Is I want to put away what makes me suffer. What is really making me suffer? Ignorance, selfishness. So I take the energy of anger, of aversion, and instead of avoiding it, I take this energy of anger and I redirect it against selfishness, against ignorance. It's very, efficace, it's very effective, but it requires much higher capacity. It's not obvious. Otherwise, you may think, I need to cultivate my desire because I am practicing Tantra, and finally, we are just practicing desire. Okay? Because one thing is to redirect it, another thing is just to feel the desire, okay? So it's not so simple, but it's very powerful. The Vajrayana path, before that, the Mahayana path is also the path of loving others. So first I need to learn how to love myself, so to have clear what is beneficial for me, and to have the strong determination to cultivate it. If I know something is good for me, there should be no excuses. And I know when I know something is bad for me, there should be no excuses. This is loving ourselves truly. And the process to love ourselves well is to learn what is good and what is bad for ourselves, because very often we really don't know. Or we even wrongly know. We think that something is good when actually it's bad, and so on. This is Lama Ganche's teaching, self-healing number 1. Recognizing our true friends and enemies. No? Then we go to the second step, which is loving others. Once we learn how to love ourselves well, then we need to take this beautiful emotion, this beautiful love, and redirect to others. We open our heart towards others. And then we start to see the suffering around ourselves, and we see that our own suffering is nothing compared to the suffering of all the other sentient beings around us. So then we open our heart, and we deeply wish to help everyone. And when we deeply wish to help others, we will find out there is no other choice other than developing our own qualities, because there is no other way of helping others, really. So we develop this strong intention. We open our hearts sincerely to everyone. This is the path of the Mahayana. Okay? Very briefly, not entering into details right now, but we develop this strong intention to develop our qualities in order to help others, really. Together with that, we also need a correct view of reality, which later we will talk a little bit more about it. And then within the Mahayana, there is the path of the Sutra and the path of the Tantra. The path of Sutra is very gradual, so you do one step after the other. And then at the same time, it's mostly familiarizing our mind with the positive states of mind in order for us to develop our qualities. The Vajrayana goes one step ahead. In the Vajrayana, it has one aspect that we will explain later, which is bringing the result into the path, which is a very important part of this. But Vajrayana is the path of transformation also. Vajrayana is the path where we use our body, we use our mind in all its aspects to enlightenment. Now, when I first started to see the Vajrayana teachings, I thought they were very mystical. Tantra is very mystical. Strange visualizations and mantras that you recite and things that you don't understand. But when I really went to study it better, I saw that it has nothing mystical in the sense that it has this mystical, let's say, approach somehow. But Vajrayana is the most down-to-earth, most down-to-ground path that I've ever seen. Why? Because it's taking into consideration our body, our mind, the environment where we live, our own process of birth, our own process of death. It takes everything into consideration. It takes us for what we are, and then it says, look, with these resources that you have, let's go to enlightenment. How can we use it in the best way in order to take us to enlightenment? And that's actually what the Vajrayana is showing us. And it's a very special process. But it's important for us to remember the Vajrayana is not undermining or not taking into consideration the Hinayana or the Mahayana. It's always like adding something more. Okay? It's like developing within it. So, inside the practice of the Vajrayana, there are different classes of Tantra, which are called the 4 different classes of Tantra, which originally were divided according to the abilities and capacities of the disciples of Buddha. And the practice of Tara Chittamani is actually of the highest of the 4 classes of Tantra, which is called the Anuttara Yoga Tantra. And within that, the Anuttara Yoga Tantra, there is what is called the Father Tantra and the Mother Tantra. And it's part of the Mother Tantra. After we can go into more details about what it means and so on. Okay? So this is, I wanted to say all of this, first of all, because we need to understand in which context we are. When we say, okay, now we do the practice of Tara Chittamani, what does that mean? First of all, it's a spiritual practice. So it's not something we do for mundane reasons. Second, it's part of the teachings of Buddha. We are following the path that was shown to us by Buddha. Third, it's part of the Vajrayana. What it means is part of the Vajrayana. It means first we need to love ourselves, then we need to love others, we need to have a correct view of reality, and use the resources of our body, mind, and environment, and everything we have in order to reach enlightenment. That's what we have within the Vajrayana path. And then here we have the sadhana, we have the actual practice of Tara Chittamani, which is showing us step by step how to do this. Okay? We will go into more details about each part as we go along through the sadhana, as we will explain each step of the sadhana, remembering that each step of the sadhana should have 3 aspects. What we recite, which is the easy part. What we visualize, which is a little bit less easy, but not so complicated. And what we think, the state of consciousness that we need to generate at each step of the practice. Then really the meditation that we do, the practice that we do, it's really guiding us, it's like a map, guiding us through a development of our state of consciousness. And then as we familiarize with it, it becomes each time stronger and stronger within us. Okay? So this is why it's so precious, what we have. It's really, really very special. But it's very important for us always to remember the context in which we find ourselves. So we are having a practice which is part of the Mother Tantra, of the Anuttara Yoga Tantra, of the Vajrayana, which is part of the Mahayana that takes into consideration the Hinayana, which is part of a spiritual practice. Okay? So this is the context in which we are. We could stay days and days talking about it to really make the context even more clear. But I just wanted to make a short introduction because we need to use these days really to understand and to practice together the practice of Tara Chittamani. Okay? So, I just wanted to conclude with the fact that it's very important for us to understand the context in which we are, as I just said before. Because the practice of Tara Chittamani is a very important practice, very precious, but only by itself, if we take it away of its context, it's not so precious, it changes completely. If we use it for a mundane reason, if we do not use it, if we take away bodhicitta, if we take away love for our self-renunciation, if we take away the correct view of reality, it doesn't sustain itself. So the context is very important. Within that also, there is one other aspect that the practice we need to always consider 2 ways of transmission, which is the so-called oral transmission and realization transmission. The oral transmission is basically the fact that when we do the practice of Tara Chittamani, we recite the mantra in the same way that it has been recited for more than 2,500 years. We do the visualizations the same way that has been done for centuries and centuries. Maybe a little bit more in details, less details, more details, but the visualization is the one that has always been done. The way of the explanation of the practice and so on, it's all the same way. And it has worked for centuries, so why shouldn't it work now? Okay? So we have this way of transmission in a way. And on the other side, we have the other part of transmission, that is the transmission of realizations, or the fact that, especially in Vajrayana, it becomes even more important. That is the fact that when we receive an initiation, an empowerment, we receive the transmission of the practice. And there is something in that in Tibetan is called Nambarikche Mayimbe Suk, which means a form, a materia, that cannot be clearly perceived, that cannot be perceived by appearance, which means there is something that is material, but that cannot be perceived by our five senses. Okay? So, matter, because it's matter, it's not just a thought, it's matter. The name that is given is matter that have no clear appearance, that cannot be perceived by our five senses. Okay, so this doesn't mean that it's necessarily energy. Really, I cannot say precisely. Oh, it's energy. It's something that it's there. And for example, when we make a commitment, when we generate a commitment, a strong commitment, we generate something physical. But that we cannot perceive it with our eyes. When we break the commitment, we lose it. We can actually feel it somehow. When we have a strong commitment and we keep, there is something that sustains us. When we break the commitment, it's like we lose something. It's like we can almost feel it, but it's not something that we can see with our eyes. Okay? Similar to that, when we receive an initiation, when we take refuge, there is something physical. There is this matter that cannot be perceived with our eyes, but there is something there. And there is this blessing, this energy that we receive, the blessing that we receive through the empowerment, that it's very important. All the great masters of the present and the past, starting from Buddha Shakyamuni, have said that without receiving the empowerment, without receiving the initiation, the blessings, we cannot get the realizations. We may know the practice by heart. We may be able to do all the visualizations and have a perfect level of concentration. But if we do not have the perfect bond with the Guru, if we do not have the right connection, if we don't receive the transmissions, if we don't have the initiation in the sense, we will have no realizations. It is for this reason also why in the past and in the present also many practitioners, they have gone through many hardships in order to receive the initiations. And it's seen as something so precious, so important. Really. It was like practitioners, they would walk for months in order to go to receive an initiation. And even that also until today, there are many practices that if the transmission is lost, if the line of transmission, because in order for me to receive an initiation, my master must have received this initiation from his masters. Like this, we should go on up to Buddha. And what happens is that if in a certain point this line of initiation is broken, I cannot give an initiation that I have never received, basically, making it more, simplifying it. Okay? I can transmit something that I have received. I cannot give something that I don't have, basically. So, and we are very fortunate that we have an uninterrupted line of transmission. That for example, the practice of Tara Chittamani I received from Lama Rinpoche, I received it from Geshe Shewanchu, both of them received it from Trichan Rinpoche, from Kyabche Son Rinpoche, Kyabche Trichan Rinpoche, Kyabche Son Rinpoche, which received it from Paponka Rinpoche, that received it from Tabuk Dorje Chan, and like this we go on and on to the line of transmission. Okay? So we have also this preciousness. I'm not going to give the initiation of Tara for different reasons. I'm going to give the transmission of the practice, but not the initiation these days. One of the reasons is that, first of all, we have still Lama Ganchen here, Rinpoche, that is giving us all the initiations. And there is one thing in Tibetan which says Talampungo Kakpa, which is the donkey getting stuck on the way of the horse, blocking the path of the horse. The horse is better than the donkey somehow, so at least that's what people think. No? So it's like a donkey is blocking the way of the horse. It's like there is Rinpoche giving the initiation, so why do I need to do it? It's like he's thousands of times better than me. So in this way, is one reason. And there are many other reasons also. One other reason is that according to the commitments and the correct way of relying upon the Guru, there are many rules actually on the right way how to relate to our own Guru. One of these rules is that we as disciples should never give a teaching to someone in the presence of our own Guru. If he's there and he can give this teaching, we should not do it. Only if his own request and with his own permission, then we can do it. Okay? At the same time, there is Rinpoche to give the initiation. Why should I do it, If the only special thing I have is great masters. But he's there, so why do we do it? One day, we hope very far away, we will not have this precious opportunity anymore, no one else to give it, then I can give it. If I did the retreats, if I received the initiation, if I have all the preparation, then I can give an initiation. So, this is just to make this point clear. Like, one time I went to receive one teaching in Tibet. I requested from one of my teachers in Tibet the 6 yogas of Naropa. And what happened is that he's finally, after 3 years making the request, he accepted. Because he said, I accept to give to you because my teacher is already passed away and there is no one else here. And none of my teachers that is alive here can actually give this transmission. That's why I can give it. Otherwise, I would not give it. Okay. So there are many ways, the correct way of relying upon the Guru. This is also part of the way of why also I don't give initiations here. And the other thing, maybe one day we could go through the 50 verses of Guru devotion, which are very precise rules and how to rely correctly upon the Guru. But this is something else, okay? But we will give the transmission of the practice. We'll have the opportunity to go through the whole practice. I have seen a little bit the sadhana, so we'll go through the whole practice, verse by verse, and understand the meaning of it, and basically taking into consideration the 3 aspects, which is what we recite, what we visualize, and what we think. And based on that, we can actually really do the practice well together. Okay?
Jetsun lame kutse raptenchi namkara trinle cholchur gepadang losan tempe drume sasumgi drowe chi nimo dele tsendele nimoyan delekshin Nintsen takto delekpe koncho sumge jingilo koncho sumge ngodrup sol koncho sumge trashishu. At dawn or dusk, at night or midday, may the 3 jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness.